What's up, everybody? It's the Tabletop Tyrant. I'm recording this shortly after making the Orcs and Goblins video. I just figure I would just get into it, do its own thing, and talk about where you can get the models, since Games Workshop's not really pumping out the minis for it right away. Now, there's going to be a few options, as you see listed. There's Games Workshop, you know, as in the freaking Bone Splitters, the Gloomspite Gits, you know, things along that line. There's third party, and then there's some STL Files. Now, one thing I want to preface is that if you're going to go to a Games Workshop event, you should have Games Workshop files. And if you're going to proxy models, you need to tell your opponent before they meet up for the game that you're proxying the models, because it's not cool if someone's guessing the entire game what they are, or maybe they don't want to play against someone with third-party minis. That's their loss, but at the end of the day, it's up to you as the proxier to inform people around you and inform any tournament or any organizations after of such. So with that little caveat, let's kind of dive into this. So we have the starter set. If y'all are willing to wait, you got this beautiful starter set coming out. Let's get into it. There's 31 Orc Warriors, 50 Goblin Warriors, 2 Chariots, and you know what? That's a pretty decent start. The one downside, and if we're going to go off the Tomb Kings, is that the HQs are going to sell fairly quick. I believe most of Tomb Kings characters were gone within that day. I tried to order one, and I ended up getting dropped because there was no way of getting it because they had sold out by the time I clicked buy. So, I mean, very interesting. I just wanted the BSB, but it was a blessing in disguise because it was resin, and I'm trying to just kind of go all plastic with the Tomb Kings. I don't want any resin. I had a 30k Death Guard army, and the resin was great. It was beautiful. It was fine, but I don't want it anymore. I don't like working with it. It's a hassle, and it's time consuming. My personal preference. Alright, now carrying on. It sucks that you're not getting at least some hero in this, because it's like you're going to have to go on a limb. You can always take that one extra Orc Warrior, convert it a bit, add some bits to it, you know, make a general out of that for the meantime, and just do like 30 Orc Warriors. The nice thing is, too, is if you're playing smaller games, you can break those Orc Warriors up into a set of 20 and 10, 15 and 15, break the Goblins down into, you know, 2 groups of 20 and then 10 Archers or Archers, and then the 2 Chariots. It's a pretty decent start, and you get a lot of the traditional models that have been gone for a long time. Also, the good thing about that kit is the Goblin Regiment builds Spears, Bows, Hand Weapon, Shield. The Orc Regiment builds additional hand weapon, shield, spear, and shield. So you get a lot of options in that, and I believe 1 command spear. They might throw in 2, though, based on how much is in there. And if so, I would go that route. Now, let's carry on here and move forward with what we're talking about into the Games Workshop Orcs. I've used all these on squares. They fit on 25s. The only ones that have a hard time fitting on 25s were the big Ard boys, but they fit pretty good on 30s, and I have a unit of 10 of them. I will put them on the channel when they're painted, and I'm not ashamed of them. But yeah, so they work out pretty okay. There's nothing too wrong with it. Any of these guys that you want, you could take that guy in the middle right here. I ended up putting a banner in that hand, and that was pretty cool. This is the Cruel Boy Bolt Thrower. It does fit on a 50 by 75. You could count the Orc on it with an Orc Bully, but it is a pain in the butt to, you know, take the dudes off if you take casualties, so be that as it may. Gut Rippas have hand weapon, shield, spear, and shield, so if you don't want to wait, you can run them. And then the Savage Orcs. Those were the same Savage Orcs from Fantasy Battles 8th edition, and then if you want regular goblins, you could kind of get away with these. I think they look better with the Chaos Dwarf range as hobgobs, because that's what they are. So yeah, those are your options there for the traditional orcs, and then there's obviously the rest of the Savage Orc range and going into that stuff. The one downside to using any GW stuff, it was mentioned on the Age of Sigmar video, which you can see here, is that, or the Age of Sigmar to Warhammer models, like how you can use them with the Start Collecting boxes. You can see it up here popping up. The hard thing is financially, it's going to cost a good chunk of money to fill out. The only thing I think being a little bit more reasonable, like the Savage Orcs, because there are boxes of 20 already, but you still got to buy the squares or print them or find them, you know. Be that as it may, but that's up to you. And I just wanted to throw that out there. Goblins, Trolls, and Mangler Squigs. Oh my! Yeah, so that's true. This range got a huge revamp. It's Age of Sigmarized, so it's going to be a bit bigger, minus the Night Goblins. The Night Goblins stayed the same. But you got the Fanatics now. You got these guys. Stone Trolls come in a box of 3, which I think their minimum unit size is 3. You can use any of their characters and try to put them together and make something pretty good. Now that they're on 25s, they'll probably work better. The Mangler Squig's the only one I'm not sure about. I've built one for my fantasy army when I was doing 8th edition a lot. And I had to put it down on a lower base size. I believe it was 50 instead of the 60 it comes on for it to work. And, you know, it was pretty tight on that. So the 50 by 75, it might be really, like, weird on that base. Also, this part right here, for anyone that hasn't built it, it's like glued on by such a small piece. And if you're not taking care of it and you don't put it upright, like, it will break. I mean, that's obviously on you, but I like things that are a bit more durable. I like that I can drop these Night Goblins and they won't smash. I like that I can drop that. The stuff floating around, I can see it just breaking. But that's just me. I'm a bit clumsy, so. And again, you're going to be paying for the price of Age of Sigmar models. So smaller unit count, a little bit more expensive. I believe the Fanatics are 45 bucks. I believe the Trolls are 50. I have to double check, but that's just going off the top of my head. Boom. Now we're going to move into third-party minis. These are not Games Workshop. They don't claim to be Games Workshop. They don't even proxy in any of their website and say, hey, we're Games Workshop proxy models. These are their own things for people that like hobbying. I found Knightmare Games because I was just looking for some cool orc models that were traditional, and these freaking killed it. They look like traditional orcs, a little bit more menacing. You can definitely tell that it's going to be a lot in the painting that's going to make up for these models. And hey, you know what? That's okay. I think they look great, and they're going to look fun on a table, and they would be fun to play against. And the nice thing is they're fairly affordable. I think it was like €9 for a freaking character, and he was cool. Now the downside, because there is a downside, they're metal and resin for the most part. I didn't look through the whole range. I looked through the orcs, and I didn't see a lot of plastic. I didn't see any plastic, to be honest. But, you know, for what they are and that old traditional look, you get to paint the old traditional type too, which is, you know, metal. So let's push on to the right and go into Mantic. Now, I like this because it's accessible as heck. You can go on Amazon right now and buy Mantic. And buy this Mantic box. I believe it's 90 bucks or like 120. It'll ship probably within 2 days, and you'll get it, and it's a decent amount of models. You'll get 2 units of 3 trolls. You'll get 3-4 chariots. Yeah, you know, you'll get 3 chariots. You'll get 10 piggies. You'll get some orcs. You even get some snotlings over here. Another unit of orcs right here. Whatever that is, I'm blocking it right now. But my point is, you get a really good amount of models for your buck. A BSB, a Shaman. Now, what's the downside? To me, I don't like the look of the faces. I don't like the size comparison. But hey, I'm a little picky. You know, I'm a picky person. I like my orcs looking like, you know, Warcraft orcs or even GW orcs a little bit, where the head's coming out of their freaking chest and it's a big, over-exaggerated featured face. So that's just me. Again, these dudes got like really small heads. I don't know what the thought was with here. This dude's head's really small, but the snotlings are cool, and you don't have to wait for them. So hey, there's that. Again, it strays from the orc look just a tad, but if you want to get started on it fairly quick, get these, buy the bases that they're supposed to go on, because orcs are now on 30s, and I'm pretty sure these are 25s. Pushing on, boom. Avatars of War. I said it once, I said it twice, and I'll say it 3 times. Avatars of War make some of the best orc models I've ever painted in my life. I have an army of them. I play them. I love them. They're gorgeous. Chef's kiss. The 3D sculptist, the 3D sculptor is a fantastic artist, fantastic person. He really puts a lot of his personality and character into these models, and to my knowledge, I believe orcs and dwarves are some of his favorite, and you can really tell in the sculpting of it. Now, what makes Avatars of War great? What, in my opinion, it's the detail. Too often, when you find the STL file or a 3D printed product, they cram as much detail as humanly possible, and that kills the model for me, personally. I don't want to sit there on a fantasy model and spend 3 weeks painting one unit. That's a lot of time for me. Now, the things I like is if you look at the orc, this is an orc war boss, or black orc war boss if you want, on Wyvern. Look at the Wyvern. The Wyvern, yeah, it has the veins in the wings, but nothing out of the ordinary. A face plate. He's got chainmail, an orc emblem here. You can do shield, have a great weapon. He has a lot of options, and a banner on the back, a crown, some skulls, but nothing over the top. There's not chains and jewels and everything dangling off the damn thing. The fur cloak on the back is cool. It looks great. And honestly, I believe that Avatars of War does some of the truer conversions of what I like to see in Orcs and Goblins. I think the big mouth, the meanness, the ferociousness of it, they're just, I'm all about it, dude. Now, the great thing about this is, say you don't have a 3D printer. I'll put a link below, but they will print that model for you and send it to you and ship it, which is great because for the price, you don't have to have a 3D printer. You can just buy the models. That's awesome. I would buy it. The link's going to be below. Also, if you're not like any jazzed about this and you're like, I don't know, Tyrant, I want plastic or pewter, they do have regiments and stuff, and they are talking about bringing some stuff back. They do have orc war bosses and shamans, and I would say that some of it's really good. A lot of it's pewter. I haven't gotten anything from them resin, so I don't know if they sell resin other than the 3D printed resin. But I will say that the quality is always top notch, and if you decide to buy that orc starter box, you can always just buy a HQ choice, a character from them if you don't mind painting pewter or getting one 3D printed. They make really good models, and that's the last I'm going to say about it. Again, links below. And last thing aside, again, these third-party options, they're not claiming to be anything for GW. They're just making really freaking cool fantasy models. So don't let it, like, deter you. And then last is Highland Miniatures. Really cool catapult. You can see the inspirations they took. Now, these are printed. I'm sure you can find someone that prints them and sells them on Etsy or maybe eBay. You'll have to look. These are really good. It's really good detail, easy to assemble, and honestly really good for the price that you get it for. If you're a 3D printer, you know you buy the file, you can print 3 of these. You'll have to play a 3,000 point game, but you can still have freaking 3 of them. Now, that's really all I wanted to get at. And these guys, they don't just do orcs, they also do some like goblins. I believe they call them swamp goblins or whatever. Yeah, check them out. The links are below. But I just wanted to tap on these couple. There's more out there, and if you have any recommendations for good orc proxies, let me know in the comments below, and if I find the best looking one, I'll pin the comment for everyone else to see. And going on, building an orc army. So normally I give like a 500 point list or a 1,000 point list, and I'll talk about like what is good. But I'm going to talk about like how I build my armies in my head. I'm not here to tell you that I'm going to create a style that's going to help you win every event. I play for fun. I play for thematic, and I love campaigns. I've gone to tournaments. I do okay at them, but the biggest thing in my opinion when it comes to a tournament is just knowing your rules and knowing your army, and if you do that, you'll know what to take. But for starting off, when you're building an army, you got to pick units, right? I pick units that first and foremost look freaking cool. Also, units that I can paint a lot of without getting burnt out on, which is why I'm staying away from the Black Orcs a lot this edition. I've painted 60 of these things, and I used them with Grimgore all throughout 8th, and I am kind of done with them. I didn't like all the smooth plating. Avatars of War, not to show them again, but they have really cool Iron Orcs, and they're actually a little bit of a reprieve painting. I go based off of what looks good, and I kind of come up with an idea in my head about the army I want. So I'm going to look at something like the Orcs and Goblins, and I'm going to say, what theme do I want to go for? Now, if I want Savage Orcs, I would probably convert the plastic models, do a little bit up with some Seraphim, and then do like a jungle-themed lizard or a jungle-themed dinosaur group of just evil savage orcs that are just monstrous. Instead of riding boars, they'd ride cold ones, and I'd probably take night goblins with fanatics, and I would have a theme in my head. Now, for me, I'm going a little bit more traditional, so I'm running a orc war boss, going in with a bunch of orc boys, some orc boar boys, orc weird knob shaman, some goblins, and I'm trying to theme it to like the traditional like look of them. You know what I mean? Mostly because when I decided to build this army, I played a lot of Warcraft Orcs and Humans, the first one. And I was just sold by fighting the orc campaign where you fight the other orcs, I believe Blackhand or whatever his name is, and you fight the blue orc. So that really motivated me to do blue armored orcs in fantasy. You could like it or hate it, it's what I'm doing, and I think it's dope. Now, moving on, what units are good? You can't go wrong with the Goblin Bolt Thrower for ranged. You can't go wrong with the Doom Diver Catapult. The Goblin Rock Lob is okay. War Machines and Archery and Arrows is not, and Magic, it's not going to be as devastating if you're a returning player from 8th edition. Now, if you played a lot of 6, I think it took a lot of inspiration from that. 6th edition was more known for, you know, having the combat phase, your movement, how you moved your units, how you deployed was huge, and it's huge in this edition, to my knowledge, as of right now, recording. And I think that that's a really big thing to look at when you look at what a good unit is. To me, a good unit is 6x5 orcs with spears and shields. You get enough wide, but not too wide to where you can't maneuver, and go deep enough to benefit from the mob rule or the warband, whatever the hell it is. And if you get charged, you take those spears, you get an extra rank of hits, and you're +1 initiative. And you can't really mess around with that. That's a great thing. I think cavalry is really good this edition. Anything with counter charge and the ability to take a cavalry spear or a lance is a must, in my opinion. I would almost take and up the ante to 2 units of 5 orc boar boys with heavy armor, shield, and cavalry spear, and just counter charge people and get that first charge too, where you're disordering them. And it's a big way to do it. Chariots are okay. I like them. They stick around a bit because if you can do enough on the impact hits, and then you get the dudes on top with cavalry spears on the turn you charge, and then you get the piggies fighting with their thick hide or their Tusker Gore charge, sorry. You're really able to kind of pull off a synergy enough if you hit a unit with like a 5 front that you can probably kill most of them off, and that chariot's going to be hanging around. And I think that that's the way that I would do it. I would run Goblin Spearmen because, again, I would set them up to kind of beta charge anything, especially if I'm playing against a player that's impetuous. I would set them up to bait that impetuous charge, let them get eaten, let them die, have a plan for them. It's okay to get armies and units that are just there to distract, suck in, and set you up for a hit. And I think that's something that's really good to look at. So when looking at what units are good, cavalry, units with spears, and then on top of it, I like archers and war machines because they thin down rank bonuses before you get in combat. And I think with orcs, that's something you really got to be mindful of, is that you're impetuous, so you're going to be charging things. Now, if you can find someone else that's also impetuous, bait that, because they're going to try and do it to you. I almost wouldn't run fast cav a whole lot with the Goblin Wolf Riders, and here's why. Because they're impetuous, you get close, you do your shoot. I was planning on doing fire and flee. I got close. I didn't end up getting charged, and the next round on my turn, I had to go and charge because I failed my impetuous check, and I just fed 5 Wolf Riders to the mount. It's a bit sobering of an opinion, and it sucks to see happen, but I would almost stay a bit away from fast cav and techniques where it's like baiting and moving around, and leave that to the high elves, leave it to the dark elves to fire and flee, and focus on just punching your opponent's army straight in the forehead. And I think you can't go wrong with that. Now, if you want to deliver the swiftest punch, black orcs are full armor. You can give them shields if you want, and a hand weapon. Make them a 3-up. They'll probably stick around. Personally, me, I give them the great weapons, and I just beat the crap out of anything that's heavy. I just pummel it, man. I'm about to have a game tomorrow against the Empire, and if you're reading this, if you're watching this, isn't tomorrow. I mean, right now, as you're probably watching it, I'm playing a game. And I'm going to bring these orcs, I'm going to see how they do, because I am really intrigued to see. I'll put pictures up in the community tab. And last but not least, out of all the war machines, the Doom Diver Catapult would be a unit that I pick, because you can readjust it, and that means the difference between potentially clipping or going after something else if you overshoot, which is really, really nice. Or even getting it off of your unit if you scatter onto your own unit. So those are my ideas. We've already tapped on producing a purpose for a unit. Think about your spears, think about your black orcs, line them up with a task, and then achieve that task on the tabletop. If you set in your mind a unit to have a specific goal with everything else, then you execute that plan, you will win. I guarantee it. And then last but not least, dude, what looks freaking cool? For me, all the orcs and goblins look sweet. I'm really excited to see the old models come back. I've owned them so many times throughout my life. The old Arrow Boys, the old Chariot, this War Boss with the BSB. This comes with the BSB, by the way. And last but not least, these Orc War Boys. I want to see the range come back. Whether I get it or not is entirely up in the air. I don't know if I'm going to. It depends on how quick they sell out. It depends on how fast they go. But I think that this is going to be a really cool box set. The one in the beginning, for anyone that really wants to tie in their army or get some new models, or even for an older player or a newer player to get into it. Just like I said, have a plan in your mind if you buy that starter box on getting an HQ and how you're going to get one for it, because they don't have them right now. Everyone, it's been fun chit-chatting with you. Tabletop Tyrant, again, thanks for hanging out with me. I know I'm always making these late and I look tired and my hair's all messed up, but I appreciate it. Also, you know what? I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Everybody, let me know how your Orcs and Goblins do. Let me know if you do anything different. Let me know what you think was the coolest one. Honestly, the Knightmare Orcs, super cool. Glad I found them. Let me know what you think. Anyways, everybody, I'm out. I'm tired, and I'm going to go to bed after I edit this. Peace.